Hello, everyone. This is Jaime, and welcome back to Serials, the PNN webcast series that chronicles your stories. Today, we are talking to the New York Times best-selling author Emily Giffin. Emily is a favorite author of mine, so it's a pleasure to get to meet her in person and talk to her about writing, the chick lit genre, and her 4 books, Something Borrowed, Something Blue, Baby Proof, and her most recent, Love the One You're With. So it's lovely to meet you today, Emily.
It's so nice to meet you too.
Why don't I start off by asking you when you first started writing?
Well, I guess when I first started writing was as soon as I started to literally be able to write. So I think that was 5 or 6. I started to write little poems and stories, and I still have them all saved, and I would illustrate them, and it was just something that I love to do. And around the time, I guess I was, old enough to really have the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think around 2nd grade, you get that question a lot. I always said I want to be an author. So it's really as early as I can remember. But if you're asking sort of when did I begin writing, professionally speaking, I went to college, and out of college, I went directly to law school and practiced law for 5 years in New York City as a litigator. And during that time, I wrote a novel in my free time, which was very little. It was very demanding hours at this firm. But I wrote this book and found an agent, was very lucky to be able to find an agent, but did not meet with commercial success past that point. The manuscript was rejected by a handful of publishers, editors. So that was very disheartening, but I decided that I wanted to quit my job. I paid off my law school loans at this point, saved up some money. So I quit my job and moved to London, where I began to write full-time, and that's where I wrote Something Borrowed, which was my first published novel. So obviously a very different experience the second time around. And I was just so grateful for that, for that opportunity and the ability to write full-time now.
Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment.
Oh, thank
you. To be able to
Thank
make a career as a writer, that's pretty cool. If my calculations are correct, in the past 7 years, you have given birth to 3 kids and written 4 books?
Actually, it would be the past 5 years.
5 years? That's even more impressive.
Oh, thank you.
So how did you do that? What is your secret?
I don't know. No sleep whatsoever. Just driving myself mad. I had twins, so that was efficient, right? To have 3 children in 4 years that way. It's been slightly more efficient. I think I calculated it that I've been pregnant for a total of 15 months, so that's 5 months per child. So that's very efficient, don't you think?
Yeah, that's quite efficient.
I've just been, really, really lucky to be able to, balance the 2 things. I think it's been so much easier to be able to work from home. I think if I were a lawyer, I don't know how women do that or men do that, just be able to balance it in that way. But for me, working from home has been a real joy. I'm able to spend time with all 3 children of my kids, and yet still, go up to my office and write for stretches of every day. I did take last year off. I wrote 3 novels. I published books in 04, 05, 06, and last year when I had my daughter Harriet, I did not come out with a book or go on tour. So I did take a little bit of a break, right?
Well, one break in 5 years, I don't know. Okay, so now the question that probably everybody asks you, the chick lit label. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
It is a question that I get quite often, and in the beginning, I have to say, when I first wrote Something Borrowed, I wasn't aware. I don't know how this was the case. I had read Bridget Jones's Diary and so many other books, but I never really thought about chick lit as a genre. So I wrote this story without thinking, oh, my book is chick lit. I just wrote this book. Didn't think about what the color of the cover would be. Didn't think about the title of the book. The title originally was Rolling the Dice, which sounds about as unchick lit. It sounds like a guy's gambling how-to book, probably, which is why they changed the title. But, and then after the book came out and the cover was pink, and the reviews came in, and it was like, this is a cut above chick lit. This is smart chick lit. This is this kind of chick lit. I felt, I was pleased with those characterizations, but I was aware too of this whole controversy over the label. And, I can see clearly the side that says that the label can be demeaning to women, and it can sort of undermine, women, and it's akin to saying, anything about women and our issues and our relationships and our struggle to balance a career and relationships and all of these other things that women in their 20s, 30s, 40s deal with. It sort of undermines all of our concerns as women to then label these stories as sort of like beach read, chick lit, light, fluffy. So I see that side of it, but I also think that, and I think sometimes the label is used to in a demeaning way. But I think more often it's simply just a descriptive way to describe a certain kind of a book, written in the first person, often an urban setting, about women with these issues that I've just described. So from that standpoint, I think it's the cover, the title, the label, all of these things just signal to the reader what these women are looking for, what they want to read, and I definitely think I've benefited from that label in a lot of ways because I think it's a very popular genre, and I think the pretty pink book with the sparkly ring on the front sells copies. I think it's reached a very a lot of women. Do I think that it's at times would the audience be broader? If the cover was different, perhaps it would be maybe broader from a demographic standpoint, but I don't think it would reach as many in number. So at the end of the day, and I think about 3 books in, I started to really think about that label a lot less. I mean, I'm always happy to answer it. I think it's an interesting dialogue, but it doesn't really concern me in the way it once did, because I feel that I'm writing these stories about, that I want to tell about women who I just try to make them as real as possible and as engaging to the reader as possible in these real emotional journeys. And I just hope that, that readers can connect with these women. And I let the reviewers and the publisher and the rest of the world worry about the labels.
This is my favorite question.
Okay.
What do you think would happen if you had Rachel, Darcy, Claudia, and Ellen all invited to one dinner party where they all sat down and had dinner together? How do you think they would interact?
That's very interesting. So the main characters for my 4 books, they're very different in a lot of ways, which it brings up another point that people always say, are the books autobiographical, or are you these women? And it would be virtually impossible to be all 4 of these people because they are so different in a lot of ways. They have some commonalities, some traits they share, but they really are different. Let's see. I think that it would be it'd be a fun night. I think there'd be some really good, lively conversation, particularly the point that Rachel and Darcy are in their relationship at this point. I like to think that they're doing well, mending fences. If you've read Something Borrowed and Something Blue, you know what I'm referring to. I think that Claudia, the woman who did not want to be a mother, she might have some things in common with Darcy and Rachel, if you get my drift. I like to think of her as actually, I see her as being a mother now, which is another story that I might tell at some point. And let's see, Ellen, I think Ellen would get along very well with probably everyone but Darcy. I think Darcy's evolved quite a bit, but I think Ellen would still roll her eyes more at, she's a bit of a stronger personality than Rachel. But I think she and Rachel would probably have the most in common. I don't know, that's great. I love that question. How fun.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'll have to write a scene where they all come together.
That would be cool. I'd enjoy that. Thanks for tuning in to Serials today. To hear more from Emily Giffin, check out emilygiffinfans.pnn.com. We'll see you next time.